Queen Elizabeth I wasn't just a queen. She was like a living legend. She called herself the Virgin Queen. She wore fancy dresses, covered in jewels, and she ruled with a sharp mind and strong hands. People remember her for her powerful court, for beating the Spanish Armada, and for making England a strong Protestant country. But behind all that beauty and power, under the thick makeup and shiny pearls, there was a woman full of fear, pride, and obsession. She cared a lot about how people saw her, and when it came to staying clean, things got really strange. Back then, cleanliness wasn't about health. It was about looking good, and Queen Elizabeth turned it into a kind of show. She believed water could make her sick. She was so afraid of getting old, she treated her body like it was holy, like it could not be touched by time or even by soap. In this story, you will hear 5 of the weirdest and most shocking things Queen Elizabeth I did to stay clean. And the last one, you won't believe it. Sugar. Elizabeth had a strong craving. Sugar. At that time, sugar was rare, expensive, and came from faraway lands. Most people never even tasted it in their whole lives. But for the Queen of England, it was everywhere. She didn't just enjoy sweets, she drowned in them. Her royal meals had candied violets, sugar-covered fruits, sweet almond marzipan, and desserts dripping with syrup. Having sugar was a way to show off power and wealth. Elizabeth didn't only eat it, she used it to display England's rising status. But here's the shocking truth. This sweet love had a terrible price. In the 1500s, dental care was very basic. Toothbrushes were rough, and most people used twigs, rags, or even crushed eggshells to clean their teeth. The Queen, however, had her own special recipe, a homemade toothpaste made of sugar and herbs. Yes, sugar! The same thing that was rotting her teeth was what she used to try to clean them. To make things worse, she also used rough powders that scratched away her enamel. Over time, her once lovely smile turned into something shocking. Foreign visitors noticed it. By the 1590s, her teeth were black, broken, or even missing. People said her breath was so bad it made those around her feel sick. Sometimes her words were hard to understand because she was speaking through rotten teeth. Still, she refused to let doctors pull them out. Elizabeth was known to be stubborn and afraid of pain. To convince her it was safe, one courtier even offered to have his own tooth pulled in front of her. Imagine that! Someone screaming in pain just to make the Queen feel less afraid? But the strangest thing came after. Instead of laughing at her bad teeth, the noble ladies copied her. Yes, they blackened their own teeth with soot and charcoal to look like hers. At her court, even rotten teeth became a symbol of high class. If the Queen had black teeth, then black teeth meant beauty, wealth, and power. The darker the smile, the richer you looked. In her world, whatever the Queen did became fashion. Even rotten teeth became trendy. That was the power of royalty. Bathing. You may have heard the famous line, "I bathe once a month, whether I need it or not." Some say Queen Elizabeth I really said it. Others say it was just a legend. But either way, it shows how people thought about cleanliness in the 1500s and how strange it feels to us now. Back then, water was seen as dangerous.
People thought water could spread illness, make the body weak, and let in bad air, something they called miasma. This invisible poison was blamed for deadly diseases like the plague. For many, taking a bath wasn't healthy. It was dangerous. So Queen Elizabeth avoided it. Instead of soap and water, she had her own routine. She would change her linen underclothes, called shifts, sometimes many times a day. People believed the soft fabric pulled sweat, dirt, and poisons out of the skin. No water needed, just fresh cloth. When she wanted to freshen up, she used rose water, vinegar, or herbal mixes made by her royal healers. Her maids gently dabbed these on her skin. It was a slow, careful ritual, not about health, but about looks. Her body was treated more like a holy object than a human one. It had to look perfect at any cost. Why not take a real bath? Because that was no small job. Her palaces had no plumbing, no running water. If she wanted a bath, servants had to drag out a huge wooden tub, heat many buckets of water, and gather at least 3 helpers to pour, stir, and prepare. It was like planning an event. Bathing was rare, more like a treat than a habit. Yet people still called her clean. She wore hundreds of gowns made of fine silk and velvet. She smelled like flowers and spices. She kept perfumed gloves, scented handkerchiefs, and demanded her look stay flawless from head to toe. But this was only the illusion of being clean, not real hygiene. No scrubbing, no rinsing, no soap. Elizabeth didn't avoid baths because she was lazy or dirty. She avoided them because water could spoil her image. It could wash away her white makeup. It could break the illusion. It could show she was human. And in her mind, a queen was never supposed to be human. Makeup. Queen Elizabeth's face is one of the most famous in history. White like porcelain, smooth like a statue, and cold like stone. But that wasn't her real skin. It was a mask painted every single day, not for beauty, but for power. In her time, pale skin meant wealth, high rank, and even a blessing from God. The whiter you looked, the higher you stood. So the queen went to the extreme. She didn't just wear makeup, she used it to create a myth, a perfect version of herself that could never grow old. Her favorite product was Venetian ceruse, a dangerous mix of white lead and vinegar. It made her skin look flawless, hiding scars, marks, and shadows. But underneath, it was destroying her. The poison sank into her skin, leaving rashes, sores, and scars. As her real face broke down, she just added more layers of paint, thicker and thicker, until she looked frozen like a mask. But that wasn't all. For her lips, she used bright red colors made from mercury, one of the most toxic things on Earth. The more she used it, the sicker she got. Her moods changed, her memory slipped, her body grew weak, and her hands sometimes shook. These were signs of mercury poisoning. But the queen never knew she was slowly poisoning herself every time she painted her face. So why keep doing it? Because her face wasn't just her own. It belonged to England. Her image was her strength. It made her seem timeless, divine, and untouchable. She didn't let painters show her real face. Instead, artists had to copy official patterns made from her younger portraits. No matter how old she got, her paintings looked the same: young, smooth, perfect, eternal. She even refused to be seen in natural light.
Candles and shadows helped hide the truth. In her last years, her face was so delicate that people whispered touching it could make the makeup crack and fall away. She hardly washed her face. Why would she? Washing meant wiping away the mask and showing the weak, aging woman under the image of the Virgin Queen. Did she know the paint was killing her? Historians still argue, but one thing is sure. She chose the mask over her health. She was ready to destroy her own body just to keep the legend of Gloriana alive. To really understand Elizabeth's cleanliness, you must see her biggest fear: losing control. Every part of her, her painted face, her scented gloves, her chosen perfumes, was not only about beauty, it was about keeping power and hiding weakness. In her time, bathing was not only rare, it was seen as risky. People thought water carried sickness, and washing meant exposing your body in a physical and symbolic way. It was seen as soft, private, even dangerous. And Elizabeth, who saw her mother, Anne Boleyn, destroyed by the court, would never let herself look weak. To her, a naked body was a weak body. So she stayed away from water and built her own version of clean, made of perfume and ritual. Every day, she surrounded herself with strong, sweet smells. Her maids mixed rosewater, lavender oil, vinegar blends, and herbal brews in the palace still rooms. These were not for cleaning her skin, they were to cover odor and create the look of freshness. A few drops behind the ears, a wipe on the wrists, a scented cloth tucked in her sleeve, and she floated through her court like a garden of flowers, free of human smell. She carried pomanders, little decorated balls filled with herbs and resins, hidden in her dress or hanging from her belt. Whenever bad smells came close, she lifted one to her nose and breathed in the safe world she had made. These were not only for comfort, they sent a message. I am not like you. I do not smell like ordinary people. Even her clothes were part of this show. Her gloves were scented, her handkerchief soaked in oils, and her gowns layered and stiff, made to cover her body and trap scent. She was known for giving perfumed gloves as gifts to courtiers, a gift not from her touch, but from her image. And her hair? It was hardly ever washed. Washing was thought to be dangerous, especially for someone wearing heavy makeup, so her real hair was stiffened with sugar water and egg whites, then powdered. As she grew older and began to lose hair, likely from years of lead and mercury poison, she switched to wigs, mostly reddish ones, to keep her look alive. But under all that powder and perfume, her body was breaking down. Years of poison makeup left her skin thin, scarred, and blistered. People whispered of peeling flesh, open sores, and a face too damaged to touch. Still, she kept painting on more and more. She even banned mirrors from her rooms. No one could see the truth, not even herself. It said she had one servant whose only job was to powder her shoulders in private so no one ever saw her real skin. Elizabeth became trapped inside her own mask. Bathing wasn't skipped just because it was hard. It was skipped because it meant erasing the mask. To wash the body was to admit it was old, weak, human. And Elizabeth had spent her whole life making the world believe she was more than human. In her last years, she even carried a perfumed walking stick. When she passed smelly courtiers, she lifted it to her nose, not only to block the smell, but to remind everyone, I am the queen. I am not like you. Her body was no longer only flesh and bone, it was the symbol of the crown. It had to stay perfect, even if the truth underneath was ruined.
To Elizabeth, being clean was not about health, it was about staying untouchable. From the outside, Queen Elizabeth's palaces looked like heaven on earth. Huge stone walls, golden ceilings, velvet carpets, and halls filled with music and silk. But step behind the royal show and you'd see something far less pretty. There were no toilets, no sinks, no plumbing. That's right. Behind all the beauty, the queen lived in a place that smelled like a sewer. Her private toilet was a fancy wooden chair called a close stool. It looked elegant on the outside, but under the cushion was just a ceramic pot for waste. It had to be emptied by hand, cleaned, and perfumed many times a day. And it wasn't done by a servant. It was done by someone with royal power. The groom of the stool. Don't let the title trick you. This man was no cleaner. He was a trusted noble, chosen for loyalty and secrecy. He didn't just help the queen use the toilet. He also helped her dress, handled private matters, and sometimes even shared secret political talks. In the strange world of the Tudor court, being near the queen in her most private moments meant being close to power. But the rest of the palace was far worse. There were no flushing toilets, just chamber pots, buckets, or bowls used by everyone. These were dumped into cesspits under the floors or just outside the walls. Cleaning all this waste was left to men called gong farmers or night soil men. They worked at night, carrying buckets of filth through dark halls and narrow stairs, trying not to spill while dumping it into open trenches. The smell was horrible, and it never really went away. To cover it up, the palace burned herbs like lavender, rosemary, and sweet marjoram. People threw flowers on the floors and laid straw or rushes soaked in oils to trap the stink. But the rushes weren't cleaned often. Dirt, hair, crumbs, and rot built up under them, creating a hidden layer of filth. Even the queen couldn't escape it. She moved her court from palace to palace, not just for politics, but to get away from the smell. The longer she stayed in one place, the worse the waste problem grew. No perfume could hide it forever. This was the real royal life, a world of gold and velvet outside, but rot and disease underneath. A place where power sat beside filth, where the most powerful woman in England lived in a constant fight with the stink of her own kingdom. Elizabeth didn't rule by luck. She ruled with strategy, style, and tricks. Her hygiene wasn't laziness. It was on purpose. Every skipped bath, every drop of rose water, every powdered wig was part of a grand act. In a world where one rumor could destroy a woman's strength, Elizabeth made herself untouchable, timeless, and almost not human. She knew the truth. A bath could break the mask. Water could wash away her power. A bare face could invite judgment. A real, aging body could ruin the perfect image she had built for decades. So instead, she powdered, she perfumed, she painted, she posed, and she became a legend. Elizabeth I may not have been clean by today's rules, but she was flawless by choice. In her world, soap and water were not for health. They were threats to power. She didn't just survive, she mastered the art of being seen without being known. In the end, her true cleanliness was not on her skin. It was in her image. And for a queen, image was everything.